Picture a small American town. A real one, maybe 20,000 people. Neighborhoods, schools, grocery stores, gyms, coffee shops, restaurants. Weekend barbecues. A local diner. A sense of community built over decades, spread across miles of streets and sidewalks. Now compress it. Not reorganize it. Not renovate it. Compress the entire thing vertically, stack it into 39 floors, wrap it in glass and concrete, and drop it on a single city block in Hangzhou, China. That's Regent International. And it's not a concept. It's not a rendering. It's not some futurist TED Talk PowerPoint that never got built. It's standing right now. People are sleeping there tonight. Getting their groceries. Dropping their kids at school. Getting haircuts. All inside the same address. And somewhere between 20,000 and 30,000 people woke up there this morning without once touching the outside world. Here's the thing that stops most people cold when they first encounter this building: it doesn't look insane from the outside. You'd almost miss it. It's sleek. It's glass. It has that clean, modern geometry that's everywhere in China's new business districts. From a distance it blends into the Hangzhou skyline like just another corporate tower. But then you start doing the math. This is a 675-foot-tall residential tower that can house somewhere between 20,000 and 30,000 people under a single roof. Take a second and think about that. The entire population of Aspen, Colorado. The entire population of Key West, Florida. The entire population of Nantucket, Massachusetts. All of them. One building. One address. One elevator bank. And here's where it starts sounding like science fiction: they might not need to leave. Not for groceries. Not for the gym. Not for a haircut. Not for school. Not for the doctor. Not even for a coffee and a pastry on a Tuesday morning. The design vision called for supermarkets, restaurants, internet cafes, gyms, swimming pools, beauty salons. And even daycare, all tucked into the same structure where people sleep. Imagine waking up, getting your coffee, dropping your kid at school, hitting the gym, buying groceries, getting a haircut. Going to a doctor's appointment, grabbing lunch, and never once touching an elevator that goes to ground level. That's not a perk. That's the stated design philosophy. Now here's the crazy part: this building wasn't even supposed to be an apartment. Regent International was originally designed as a 6-star luxury hotel. Not a residential complex. A hotel. The plans were drawn, the foundation was poured, the framework was going up, and then the vision shifted entirely. Designed by internationally acclaimed architect Alicia Liu, who was also the chief designer for the Marina Bay Sands Hotel in Singapore. If you know what that building looks like, you already understand the caliber of ambition behind this project. But instead of hosting tourists for 3-night stays with turn-down service and a concierge, the master plan was rewritten into a hyperdense vertical tower that promotes accessibility, blends with the natural landscape, and creates diverse development within Hangzhou's central business district. They didn't just redesign the purpose. They redesigned what a building could mean. And the shape? Not random. The distinctive S-shaped form was a deliberate engineering choice, to optimize natural light exposure, enhance internal circulation, and mitigate wind loads more effectively than a conventional rectangular footprint. Every curve has a structural reason. This isn't architecture as art. This is architecture as problem-solving at a scale most engineers never even attempt. The resulting complex stretches across multiple city blocks, linked together by a maze of hallways and sky bridges, ranging between 36 to 39 floors with an expansive internal area of 260,000 square meters. To put that in perspective, 260,000 square meters of floor space. The Pentagon, the single largest office building on Earth, sits at about 600,000 square meters. Regent International is almost half the size of the most famous military headquarters in the world. And it's residential. But wait, who actually lives here? Most people assume this is some kind of government housing project. Low-income units stacked to the sky. Utilitarian, grim, no different from the Soviet apartment blocks most people associate with dense residential towers. That assumption is wrong. The building's units were originally designed as loft-style duplex apartments ranging from 74 to 222 square meters. With floor heights of about 5 to 6 meters, a design conceived in collaboration with the US-based HBA design firm. 5-meter ceilings. Let that land for a second. The average American apartment has ceilings around 2.4 meters. Regent International's base units nearly double that. The original design intention was closer to a boutique luxury development than a packed residential block. However, as the building transitioned into a shared apartment complex, many landlords divided larger units into multiple smaller rooms to increase rental income. Some 90-square-meter units are now split into at least 6 small single rooms, and 140-square-meter units are often divided into 8. So here's the reality inside Regent International: it's 2 buildings in one. Walk into the wrong section and you're in a labyrinth of subdivided micro-rooms, thin walls, 6 strangers sharing a hallway. Walk into the right section and you've got a duplex with a 40-square-meter balcony overlooking the Qianjiang River and a view of Hangzhou's skyline. Lighting up at night. Same address. Completely different world. Smaller studios without windows run around $209 per month. Larger units with balconies and river views can go for $558 or more. For a building sitting in one of China's most economically active cities, Hangzhou, home of Alibaba, a legitimate tech and finance capital, those numbers aren't just cheap. They're shocking. And that price gap tells you exactly who's filling those floors. A large proportion of the building's population is students and recent migrants to the city using it as a temporary residence. Since opening, the building has also attracted young professionals just starting their careers, social media influencers, and entrepreneurs. So the ground floor is a food court. The 5th floor is a gym. The 15th floor is someone's bedroom. And the 30th floor has a view that would cost you $6,000 a month in Manhattan. Let's actually walk through this thing, because the footage that went viral is something else entirely. The lobby hits you first. Grand and luxurious. With a design created in collaboration with HBA, the US-based firm that works on some of the world's most expensive hotel interiors. Polished stone. High ceilings. The kind of entrance that makes you forget you're not checking into the Four Seasons. Then you step past the lobby and realize you're not in a hotel at all. You're in a city that happens to have a roof. Inside Regent International, a grocery mart open 24 hours a day, because 30,000 people will have late-night cravings. Restaurants ranging from street barbecue stalls to coffee shops. Health and wellness centers, yoga, Pilates, medical offices, just steps from the escalator off your floor. Sky bridges and long hallways connect multiple blocks, allowing residents to reach nearly everything they need without stepping outside. The corridors feel like city streets that just happen to be indoors. Some are buzzing with foot traffic at 11 p.m. Others, in the less populated wings, are eerily quiet, with businesses that half-opened and never quite took off. The complex also features smart technology and sustainable infrastructure, including solar panels, rainwater recycling, and advanced HVAC systems. Security runs on biometric access controls and CCTV coverage throughout. Would you trust living inside this? Genuinely. Think about it. Because thousands of people already answered that question, and said yes. Now here's where things get really strange. The apartments themselves vary so dramatically that two people living in the same building on the same day might as well be in different cities. On the higher floors, the ones with balconies, the ones that kept the original loft design, you have 5-meter ceilings. Open-plan kitchens with islands, master bedrooms with their own cloakrooms and soaking tubs, wraparound river views. A 40-square-meter private balcony where you can set up a tea table and watch the Qianjiang glow at night. The kind of apartment that, on paper, reads like a lifestyle magazine spread. On the lower floors, in the subdivided sections, a 90-square-meter unit that was designed for one family now houses 6 separate tenants. Thin temporary walls. Minimal natural light. A shared hallway that feels like a very long, very narrow hallway forever. Social stratification is one of the major implications of this complex. There's a clear hierarchy based on apartment type and floor location, with a variety of services and amenities restricted accordingly. In other words, Regent International accidentally recreated the exact class structure of a real city. Just stacked vertically instead of spread horizontally. The wealthy live higher up. The budget residents live on lower floors. The premium amenities cluster toward the top. The basic necessities stay at the bottom. Sound familiar? That's every city that's ever existed. Just compressed into 39 floors. Most people miss what that actually means. Regent International isn't a freak experiment. It's urban society operating by the exact same rules it always has, just without the geographic separation that usually makes those rules invisible. But let's be honest about the parts that don't make it into the highlight reel. Critics have consistently flagged real concerns. Tightly packed apartments can cause claustrophobia. Lack of privacy and noise pollution are persistent complaints. And the detachment from the broader city of Hangzhou has been cited as a social drawback for long-term residents. In the event of a fire or individual emergency, residents could be more vulnerable compared to those in more traditional structures. Imagine coordinating an evacuation with 20,000 people. Or even 10,000. The logistics alone are a problem no architect fully solved. There's also documented concern that residing in a self-sufficient living environment can negatively affect mental health, that being able to live entirely within one structure without interacting with the wider world creates a kind of social isolation that's hard to see from the outside. And there's something even harder to quantify. What does it do to a person, over months, over years, to live in a place so complete that there's no reason to leave? Cities are stimulating precisely because they're unpredictable. The detour that becomes a habit. The street food stall you find by accident. The neighborhood you'd never have visited. The stranger you talk to at a bus stop. Regent International removes all of that friction. And friction, as it turns out, might be exactly what makes urban life worth living. Seriously though. Let's zoom out, because this is where the conversation gets genuinely uncomfortable for urban planners everywhere else on the planet. Some megacities, Shanghai, Hong Kong, Tokyo, Seoul, already have areas where population density exceeds 400 people per acre. In such cities, all infrastructure must be integrated into a system extending both below and above vertical space. The direction of travel is already vertical. The question is just how far up the answer goes. Hong Kong's Urban Renewal Authority has already unveiled plans to integrate the vertical city concept into redevelopments in Yau Ma Tei and Mong Kok. The kind of high-density mixed-use developments that compress neighborhoods into single-connected megastructures. This isn't a Chinese experiment that stays in China. The urban pressure that produced Regent International exists in Jakarta. In Mumbai. In Sao Paulo. In London, where a one-bedroom apartment in Zone 2 costs more per month than a duplex with a river view in Hangzhou. In Toronto, where young professionals are being priced out of the city they work in. In New York, where $4,000 a month gets you a studio with no balcony and a landlord who texts back maybe once a week. As cities worldwide grapple with overcrowding and skyrocketing housing costs, self-contained megacomplexes are starting to look less like oddities and more like prototypes for the future. That's the shift that's hard to accept if you grew up believing in the suburban dream. The detached house. The yard. The two-car garage. The neighborhood where you recognize every face. That model requires one thing above all else: land. And land is running out. Not globally. Not in the middle of Montana or the Australian interior. But in the places people actually want to live, near the jobs, near the networks. Near the opportunities that define modern economic life, that land is already spoken for. Regent International is China's answer to that equation. Whether you find it inspiring or terrifying probably depends on where you live and how much you're paying for it. Now here's the question that nobody in traditional urban planning wants to sit with. If this becomes the template, if vertical self-contained cities become the default answer when horizontal space runs out, what happens to everything? Built the old way? What happens to the suburb that requires a car for every errand? To the neighborhood where the nearest grocery store is a 15-minute drive? To the apartment building that's just apartments, no gym, no food court, no doctor. No daycare, 4 walls and a mailbox and a parking lot out front? Does it become outdated? Does it become economically uncompetitive? Does the math stop working the way it used to? The people who lived through the shift from horse-drawn transportation to the automobile said the same thing. Something ended. Something much larger began. And the people who adapted fastest to the new model had an enormous advantage over the people who kept betting on the old one. Regent International opened in 2013. It took over a decade for the rest of the world to notice it. It was late 2024 and into 2025 when the building truly captured international attention at scale, going viral on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. Everywhere, with drone footage, interior tours, and debates about whether this kind of living represents progress or warning. The comments told the whole story. Some compared it to science fiction, hive cities, straight out of Warhammer 40,000. And yet plenty of residents who actually live there swear by it, praising the convenience, the security, and the tightly run facilities. Both reactions are right. That's what makes this building so hard to dismiss and so hard to fully endorse. It's genuinely both things at once. A marvel of logistics and a question mark about human psychology. A solution to affordability and a compression of freedom. A community and an isolation chamber. A city and a single address. The world is urbanizing faster than it ever has in human history. The United Nations projects that by 2050, roughly 70% of the global population will live in cities. That's billions of people who need housing, infrastructure, schools, hospitals, grocery stores, and everything else that makes daily life function, all concentrated in places that are already running out of room. China saw that math coming earlier than most. And Regent International, for all its contradictions, is one possible answer to the question no one else had quite figured out how to ask yet. It's not perfect. The subdivided rooms. The noise. The floors that feel abandoned. The social stratification that mirrors a real city without the geographic buffer that makes it livable. The fire safety questions nobody fully resolved. The mental health implications of an existence so self-contained it forgets what outside feels like. None of that disappears. But neither does the 20-year-old who just arrived in Hangzhou with $300 and a job offer and needs somewhere to live by Monday. For them, Regent International isn't a dystopia. It's a solution. And the gap between those two truths, the dystopia and the solution, might be exactly the gap that defines how cities evolve over the next 50 years. China already built the experiment. The rest of the world is just now starting to read the results.